We all grew up watching movies at a young age, and as a kid, I watched them. Disney films, The Wizard of Oz, Home Alone, Shrek, movies that came out around my age, some that I like and some I don't like. Some are zany and odd, but that's what I grew up with. Yeah, I'm a 90s and 2000s kid all the way, and that's what my generation is at. Well, before 2006.
Bruh.
However, there were some movies I actually skipped during my childhood years. Yeah, you guys might be shocked that I missed them during my 10-year life. So today, I will be doing my top 10 movies I missed out during my childhood. This will be a fun video to do. Before I get to the list, I have a few rules for this list. I won't be including Disney animated films like Dumbo and Bambi because it wasn't worth it to do them. I won't be including mature ones like Ghostbusters. As much as I do love that movie, it's hard to know if I want to include it at a young age. Also, I won't be including ones I have watched on TV briefly like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Beetlejuice, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, etc. I'm only picking movies that came out before I was born and up until 2005. And heads up, there will be some movies I have talked about before, so get used to it. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get to my top 10 movies I missed out during my childhood. Number 10. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? While I did say I didn't want to include mature films, this one at least has cartoons. My first introduction to this movie was a short clip from the Pinocchio VHS. It's only brief. When I got older during my tween years, I wondered why I didn't watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's not that old and it has cartoon characters. Well, mainly because it's a mystery type movie, it does have maturity, and yes, it even has scary moments. And that's the reason why I put this low on the list, even if I saw this as a kid. I think the most scene in the movie I would have loved is when Eddie Valiant falls and then Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny popped up together. Like, that would have been a shocking moment if I saw it as a kid. Now that I'm older watching it, yeah, this movie is awesome. It's hard to know if young kids watched this movie back then. I mean, this movie is mainly towards teens and adults. Now, I'm not sure if this movie was hard to find back then. It was on DVD, which it would have been great if I found a copy. But yeah, this is one of the few movies I should have watched as a kid. Number 9. E.T. the Extraterrestrial. This is a movie I've talked about before on the channel, but I'll do it quickly. I mentioned before that I first saw E.T. on the Shrek VHS, and I'm like, what is this? In the preview, they said it's the 20th anniversary, meaning it came out in 1982, but it's a re-release. Unlike the other 80s movies where I did watch on TV, this one I didn't watch on TV. I have watched some clips of the movie because one of my mom's friends owned a copy, but I still count it as I missed this one during my childhood. Now, would I follow this movie fine as a kid? Yeah, I can. I mean, the sci-fi stuff will be complicated to follow. I'm like, okay, the scientists want the aliens so they can experiment. Besides being one of the best sci-fi films, it's one of the best family films since it's in that category. I still stand by it's not my favorite out of any Spielberg movies. Jurassic Park is still my favorite from his, and funnily enough, that was the movie I watched as a kid.
Ooh, how convenient!
Another thing I do want to mention is the ending. I would actually love this scene if I saw it as a kid. But yeah, E.T. deserves on my list. Number 8. The Sandlot. Another movie I've talked about before on my channel. Yeah, The Sandlot could easily been one of them. I mentioned before I didn't grow up with sports much, but my older brother did. In fact, he loved baseball. But I don't understand why he or my dad bought this movie on VHS. It seems like a good 90s family sports movie. However, there was another 90s sports movie that came out 3 years after The Sandlot. And yeah, it's no shock that Space Jam came out. My brother did own Space Jam on VHS, but The Sandlot, he never got it. My first introduction to this movie was in the 20th Century Fox VHS previews with 8 films, and The Sandlot was one of them. Like I said, this would have easily been a good choice to pick during my childhood. And while the baseball stuff is in it, there are scenes like the boys trying to get the ball and the beast dog. I would have loved to watch it during my childhood, and while I could have put it higher in the top 5, but I put it low because it is a sports movie, and of course, the one scene that where Squints has a crush on this girl. And while Space Jam was part of my childhood, The Sandlot should have been too. Easily deserves on this list. Number 7, Spirited Away. Wow, third in a row of a movie I've talked about before? This is insane. But yeah, it's no secret that I love Spirited Away, easily in my top 10 favorite movies. I think it was a good idea to include a Studio Ghibli movie on the list. I mean, as a kid, I knew a little bit of anime, but I was more of Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, but still. I first saw Spirited Away as a physical copy. Yeah, no previews, just this cover. Which I find the cover interesting because it shows girl looking directly in front and a creature in the background. Plus, the text says Walt Disney Studios, which it is a shock that Disney acquired Studio Ghibli. Unfortunately, they're not required today, and G-Kids acquires the rights to Studio Ghibli films, and you can actually watch them on Max streaming service. Anyways, back to the movie. You may wonder why I'm including this. Well, because of its creative world. I don't think this movie will be too confusing at all. I mean, I might see the crazy moments as a kid, but it will be beautiful and amazing, it will be. Again, I would have loved to put this movie higher, but I got other movies to put on this list. Since Spirited Away is a Studio Ghibli movie, I will also give an honorable mention to Kiki's Delivery Service. This movie was pretty close to reaching the top 10, which it's also one of my favorites from them. But I think Spirited Away is my favorite, and yeah, the most popular from them, and even Hayao Miyazaki. Easily a wonderful anime movie. Number 6, The Nightmare Before Christmas. Another one I've talked about before back in Halloween last year. Like Roger Rabbit, my first introduction to this movie was a preview on the Pinocchio VHS. This one does have more clips and even showing behind the scenes clips. When this movie came out, it did okay at the box office, but by around the late 2000s, it gained a following and even a bunch of merchandise that came around Halloween and even Christmas, hence the title. This movie could have been part of my childhood. I love the songs, I love the stop motion, and I love that it focuses on 2 holidays. However, when this movie got released, Disney initially went through Touchstone Pictures because the studio believed the film would be too dark and scary for kids. So, why am I including this almost higher on the list despite it would be dark and scary if I watched it as a kid? Well, it's complicated. I would have watched it around 2003 or 2004 and not around age 4 or 5 because I would be scared by Jack Skellington, Oogie Boogie, and those toys that the children got scared. My parents would refuse me to watch that. I think older kids is more the age to watch this movie and maybe find it not scary. I mean, as a kid, I wasn't scared of Disney villains, the Wicked Witch, and even the dinosaurs from Jurassic Park. Come on, I can handle those fine when I was little. I still stand by from what I said in the review that the movie is pretty simple, and yeah, it is. I would like this movie for its creativity if I saw it. Also, side note, Henry Selick directed another movie with stop motion, James and the Giant Peach, and I did actually watch that movie as a kid. It was a good choice for that, but man, Nightmare Before Christmas would have been great if I saw it. Oh well, gained a following by the time I was turning into a teenager. It may be popular now, but I would have loved to watch this movie before. Number 5, The Muppet Movie. Finally, a movie I haven't talked about. As a kid, this movie was not my introduction to the Muppets. It was actually on a Muppets VHS, which I will do a feature video of my introduction, and funnily enough, it did have the Muppet Movie preview on the VHS. Speaking of preview of the movie, I was shocked as a kid seeing Big Bird appearing and talking to Kermit and Fozzie, until you realize, oh yeah, Sesame Street is connected to the Muppets. Anyways, this is one of the few movies I really should have watched as a kid. It was on VHS a couple times since. Unlike Roger Rabbit, Nightmare Before Christmas, and Spirited Away, where they're mature, dark, scary, and maybe complicated, the Muppet Movie just fits at a young age. I would say age 5 or 6. I would just look at the Muppet characters doing their own thing and coming across humans throughout the road trip. I will say this, the Muppet Movie, while I do like it, is not my favorite out of the Muppet Movie. In fact, my personal favorite Muppet movie to this day is The Great Muppet Caper. Now, how come I didn't include that? Well, the Muppet Movie has gained credit for being the first of the franchise, and that's why I wanted to include this one and not The Great Muppet Caper. and I wanted to see the introduction of the Muppet characters. Either way, the Muppet movie is my choice for this list. Number 4, A Christmas Story. Yeah, this may come to no shock for putting this movie on the list, but I gotta mention the first time I saw A Christmas Story since I totally glossed over in my review. The first time I saw A Christmas Story was in the Iron Giant VHS. There might be some other Warner Brothers VHS, but this was the one I saw, and it was on a preview showing other Warner Brothers holiday titles. Besides the VHS, during the time when I was young, TBS and TNT would air during Christmas time in a 24-hour loop. That means my parents couldn't get me a VHS copy during the holidays, or better yet, record it on TV on Christmas Day, and there. But yeah, those two could have worked. I mentioned in the review about what if I saw this for the first time and not It's a Wonderful Life or Home Alone. Well, it could have easily been my favorite Christmas movie I could have watched even more than Home Alone. Well, Home Alone came out at the beginning of the 90s and my type of Christmas movie, and that movie would air on different cable stations. Either way, A Christmas Story was one of them I should have watched. I mean, it's kinda edgy with Ralphie saying fudge and not the actual F word, but other than that, it's a simple Christmas movie. But yeah, I would have loved it around Christmas time during my childhood years, and this movie deserves on the number 4 spot. Number 3, Matilda. Okay, last film that I've talked about before on the channel. I'm serious. Anyways, this is odd that I put it higher than Roger Rabbit and Nightmare Before Christmas because this movie is pretty dark. So why did I include it higher? Well, it's based off of the children's book, and the movie came out right at the time when I was 1. The movie did attain greater popularity after being released on home video, and I did see it on a preview on the Stuart Little VHS. I didn't know what it was, but I went, looks cool, I would watch it one of these days. But I kinda don't understand why my parents or my older brother didn't buy it on VHS. Besides the darkness, maybe because it's kinda similar to Harry Potter, even though this came out 5 years before the first Harry Potter movie. Honestly, this could have been great for school because I was getting ready for school when I was young, just like Matilda. But yeah, this movie could have been the one in my childhood during the late 90s, and Matilda is the most 90s movies I could have watched as a kid. Number 2, Star Wars. Which one? The original trilogy, of course. Yeah, during when I was becoming a tween, the prequel trilogy has ended and I was going to include them, but the prequel trilogy is not great. The original trilogy is where Star Wars is at, but if I had to pick one out of the 3 in the trilogy, it's obviously the first one. Don't get me wrong, I love Empire Strikes Back, it's my favorite Star Wars movie, but A New Hope is the one where you have to learn about the series with the characters, the world, and the overall story of it. Interestingly, the original trilogy re-released in theaters back in 1997, 2 years after I was born. The reason why they did that because George Lucas wanted to put CGI in the trilogy. I guess that works, but I think puppets and animatronics works better if you ask me. And while the original trilogy were re-released, this was not my introduction to Star Wars. My introduction to Star Wars was The Phantom Menace. Yeah, the first of the prequel trilogy, and I saw this from a poster and clips on TV. And kids actually grew up with Phantom Menace when it came out. And while I would like to be a part of it, but I'm not a fan of the Phantom Menace. A New Hope and the original trilogy in general is where I would have got into the franchise. And while it has a lot of adult dialogue moments sprinkled in the movie, I just want to see the cool actions and special effects. As far as the age I could have watched, probably around age 7 or 8. It's a movie that it can take seriously for older kids. After all, kids are obsessed with Star Wars now thanks to Disney owning them. And while I was this close to putting Star Wars on number 1, I have a movie that's worth it for me. Well, let's take a look. Number 1, Mary Poppins. Yes, this is the one I really should have watched as a kid. Y'all may think, really, Jordan? This movie? A Disney live-action movie from the 1960s with a childlike innocence with magic? Well, yes! And I'll tell you why. During my lifetime, I had Disney films, and during those eras, there was a few live-action. And almost some were not that famous, but some did, like Hocus Pocus, the Parent Trap remake, and so forth. It wasn't until the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie where it got full-on famous for the Disney live-action stuff. However, Mary Poppins carried on over the years, and for some reason, I keep seeing it more and more. I've seen it in previews so many times on VHS, and even a preview on the Princess Diaries 2 DVD, and every time I see it, I say, why haven't I watched Mary Poppins? I need to see it so badly. Besides the previews, Mary Poppins has released about 3 times during my lifetime. The Masterpiece Collection VHS, the Gold Classic Collection version, and the 40th Anniversary Edition. Like, geez, so many times they released it in formats, and I keep missing it as a kid. Why did my parents got me this for like a Christmas gift or a birthday gift? To me, this is the one I could have stick to around during my childhood. It's not dark, it's not mature, it's not scary, it's not complicated, it's very simple. That's why I would describe this movie. Not only the word simple, but magic and wonder, and man, this is the one, you guys. And while it does have serious moments or moments that I could get bored as a kid, like the bank talk, but it can be entertaining. And Mary Poppins has so many moments I would have loved as a kid, like the one when they go into the cartoon world. It would have been awesome. However, while I did miss out on it as a kid, it was great watching it for the first time at age 17. And by the time I was getting older, it just got better and better. It is a wonderful flick. And this is no joke, you guys. It's the 60th anniversary of Mary Poppins this year, and I will be definitely doing a review by September. I know it's a couple months away, but I will be doing a video on Mary Poppins and see how it's a wonderful film. And Mary Poppins deserves to be the #1 film I missed out during my childhood years. Wow, this top 10 list took longer than I thought. But hey, I like doing them, and I can't wait for more top lists in the next few years. Let me know what movies you missed out during your childhood. That is all for the top 10 video. Now I can rest my voice, and great news, everyone! The next video is coming at the end of July. My Pixar films ranking. I am ready. I will see you all, folks. Bye bye!